real quick.
Oh, okay. Go ahead and attire here. I'll quickly talk real quick here. Hello, welcome to the podcast. We're
Hello.
virtual again. We're
For now.
virtual. Kalani's here, getting her hair done real quick. But as for me, so initially we wanted to do the podcast in person, but some of us is a sick person today.
Also some miscommunication, but yes, I'm well, not sick. My allergies are just going a little bit crazy.
Yeah. Okay. It might be allergies. That's one thing I did want to talk about a little bit because stuff's on fire lately.
Oh my God, yeah. No, actually, I'm not even joking.
Hmm.
My allergies for the past couple of days have been a little bit nuts.
Hmm.
And I think I had work the other day and I literally looked out and the sky was like lit up with smoke.
Yeah. Yeah. That was kind of the theme. Like I left um like the Alhambra area because it was like I was there, and then with my brother to eat like there's this place over there called Chicken Ban,
Mm-hmm.
and so pretty good chicken spot. But that's besides the point. The point that I wanted to make, it was the fire in El Sereno was like just engulfed, like
Yeah.
the smoke just kind of like was just hanging in the area. You couldn't smell it, but you could see it. You could clearly see the black smoke.
Yeah, no, it definitely was a little bit crazy this week. There's a lot of fires going on. In fact, I think there was a fire near
Near where
near
I
yeah.
kind of live. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
off the 60 freeway. But yeah, so today we're gonna be talking about Shang-Chi. That's the last time. Last time we did a podcast together, we left to watch Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Right,
So we're
right.
gonna talk about that a little bit, catch up on media. We're going to talk about something that's not so great, the Gabby Petito case, but we'll try our best to be as respectful as we can be
Mm-hmm.
on given the topic. Our time at the Cambodian Town Film Festival that just wrapped up September. Let me get the date here. Let me get the date right. The 24th to the 26th.
Right.
That was good times had by all. We watched an interesting movie.
It was
Uh,
very fun.
yeah, we were only there for one day and then we were exhausted.
I like how we are like only there for one day.
Yeah. Imagine going there for both days.
I think it'd be
Um,
fun, but it definitely is a lot. It feels like a lot that we
mhm.
did.
So we're gonna highlight maybe the movie and maybe some highlights, some of the experiences that we had there,
Mm-hmm.
and then the last thing we want to talk about, COVID a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
far you're under the weather because of allergies, as far as you know, right? As far as you understand it. But
Definitely.
there's some new news about COVID. I wouldn't say restrictions, but did you hear about the whole Newsom sets COVID guidelines for people 12 and 18?
No, I have not.
So, this is just a headline. It's just Newsom orders COVID vaccines for eligible students. The first state to mandate K through 12 schools.
Oh, huh.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So that's been happening. We're going to talk about that. That was going to be the topic for my guests this week, but things happened, and now I have Kalani again.
Yep.
And then, oh yeah, by the way, thank you. International Podcast Day was yesterday. We're recording this on the 1st of October. By the way, it's spooky Halloween month. So I was really hoping that we were gonna like dress up or something.
We can do that for a special Halloween podcast.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. Anyway, so let's go ahead and start. So our first subject here. So Shang-Chi. So you've when we watched it, it was your second time watching it, and you thought it was that good that you watched it the second time. And I wanted to ask, okay, so I guess I would have to spoiler tag, but this is like almost like a 3 month movie release at this point, right? Should I?
I think
Should
so.
we do a spoiler tag?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay,
Some
I'll put
people
a
are probably still
spoiler.
waiting for it.
Okay, I'll put a spoiler tag, and then I'll put a skip here
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
time code. But anyways, so second time watching it, did you find anything different from the film, or should we just do first impressions first?
You can do first impressions first and then go into it.
Okay, so let's just do first impressions, and then we'll get into your ideas. Wait, what you caught on a second viewing?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so what was your first impressions of Shang-Chi?
For me personally, I felt like it seemed very relatable.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've mentioned it in previous podcasts before, but I tend to like after I watch anything that's like new to me, I always do look into like watching videos of reviews, discussions about it, so and so yada yada. And I find it very interesting that like they marketed it towards kind of like Asians universally,
Mm-hmm.
but the story itself, it to me felt much more like Asian American centric because it felt very like relatable to me. Like there are a lot of moments in the film where you're like watching it and you get it, right? Like there's one part where I think the character that Ronnie, is it Ronnie Chen? Well,
Yeah,
anyways,
yeah, Mani Chen from the Daily Show.
right, yeah. So he plays a character and he goes, "Ah, you speak ABC. I got you." And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Ah, I get that." And like a whole bunch of other things that I was just like, "Ah, this is very relatable to me."
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
It kind of reminded me of, yeah, like this idea, or this like the idea of like being Asian American. So like this film is just kind of like that I wouldn't say example, or like it is an attempt to describe the Asian American immigrant experience almost.
Mhm.
And for the most part, the fact that it was a film interested in only talking about this family drama and not a grander moral situation, I thought that that really worked to the film's like benefit.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so that
I
was my, I was gonna say
no, go first, go
yeah, I was
first.
gonna say my first impressions, I did very much enjoyed the movie through and through. You know, Aquafina's great in that role, and honestly, she's great in any of the roles that she has in front of her.
The
Uh,
many roles.
yeah, the many roles, and kind of, I might relate to her as a character a bit more than most, because it just seems like, oh, this is somebody that like seems to be good in a lot of things, but also feels um like what's that word, disaffected, or just kind of like beat down by expectations of other people,
Mhm.
and then like has to kind of like find her own path almost, and then
Yeah.
eventually, hopefully, that path leads to a spot in the Avengers.
That'd be kind of cool,
Yeah, that
huh?
would be awesome. Yeah.
I'm very thankful that like to me it feels like the film was written really well.
Hmm.
Um, I kind of actually like how the film's not really like Shang-Chi centric. It's very like very grounded in the idea of like family and
Hmm.
familial expectations. And Tony Leung's character just felt very good to me as well. Like
Hmm.
as a villain, he's I think very relatable in a way. Well, not exactly, but I think like as you're watching it and you see his motivation to do things, you're like, ah, I get
Hmm.
it. I mean, the way you're choosing to do it is wrong, but I understand why you're doing it.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. This might be Tony Leung's American film debut also.
That's what I heard. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it is his first film as well in the U.S.
But it doesn't mean that he's not a legendary actor in his own right. Like, you know, he was in um um sorry, my brain is not working. He's in that Chow Yun Fat movie, A Better Tomorrow, right?
Oh yeah, he's in a lot of Chow Yun Fat movies.
Yeah, and then In the Mood for Love, that's the one that a lot of people they remember. um I guess another one is Happy Together. That's the one, that's the LGBTQ movie that he's in.
Mm-hmm.
One of his first films. So um he's a legendary Hong Kong filmmaker, right? He's from Hong Kong. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
He
yeah,
he
so
got started in like the original TVB shows, and TVB is like essentially uh the Chinese equivalent of what a K drama would be.
Oh, really? And that's
Hmm.
where that's the central clearinghouse for all of Hong Kong directed dramas. Then,
Hmm.
yeah, and he's great in that role. And it made me feel, or it made me think, is like, wait a minute, has he not been in any other American productions before then? Before then, and I felt like I couldn't tell. Like he's just that great of an actor.
He's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the so given that you saw this movie a second time, was there anything that you picked up that surprised you, or anything that you noticed in particular?
Mm, like since it's been a little while since I last watched it, like off the top of my head, I can't remember like every single thing if I picked up anything. More so I used my second viewing of it as a way to kind of like look at potentially details that I missed or
Mm-hmm.
things that were like I wanted to see if there was any like details they like sprinkled in that if I wasn't paying attention the first time, I could have picked up the second time.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, it's just more so the experience I got the second time, like watching it through, was just like kind of like, yeah, this is a very solid, good movie. Like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the characters to me seem very, very fleshed out, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really feel like there's any real like any character that was written too poorly or anything like that. Like I liked all of the stories that they wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but on the second viewing, I think obviously because it's a Marvel film, they have like post credit scenes and stuff like that. So the second time around when I was watching it, I was like thinking to myself, like obviously there's like a scene where Shang Chi's sister is like taking over her father's empire and stuff like that. And when
Mm-hmm.
Shang Chi thinks like, oh, she's like dismantling it. But it does seem like that feels to me like a loose end. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious where they'll go with that. So
Yeah, there was some people that really believes that in that film in particular, or like that, not Shang-Chi itself, but like that scene is setting up a a sort of a Marvel Mortal Kombat situation. like
yeah,
just imagine like one-on-one combat between like Shang-Chi versus what Falcon or something.
yeah,
Um and I'm sure that there is a comic book logic to that, and it is not limited to Marvel versus Capcom. But who knows? Who knows if that's going to be the case?
right.
Uh but seeing that scene though, it just kind of like reiterated that like within that film there's a lot of strong female characters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just female characters that are physically strong, but also like in a sense mentally, and not, I wouldn't say mentally, but like in of their mind and of their agency are
Mm-hmm.
very independent.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just something that I wanted to highlight, or at least get an idea of.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and that being said, so besides Aquafina, there's also Michelle Yeoh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she plays the like the aunt, I
Mm-hmm.
believe, the aunt character, and kind of like the Shang-Chi's last teacher almost. She doesn't
Yeah.
die, but like imparts a an understanding or wisdom onto Shang-Chi that I guess he doesn't like have yet,
Yeah.
but he understands that the only person that ever defeated his dad was his mother, and so therefore he must learn. And so
Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool. And then other than that, I feel like it's also starting up this conversation. Okay, so this is broader Marvel stuff, but this conversation of like multiverses, because where they were in that universe, it was separate from Earth as far as they could understand. At least what other people were explaining to me, that is a different like world of its own, with its
Oh
own
yeah.
rules. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where we get Marvin, not Marvin, Marlin, whatever that faceless animal was.
The faceless animal?
Yeah.
I need to think.
Oh, dude, Morris.
Oh, Morris.
Morris.
I was like, Marlin? Who's Marlin? Like Merlin, like the wizard?
What, it might as well been a wizard.
Well,
It
so
had no face.
I looked into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like in hindsight, a lot of the characters that they use that were kind of like mythical creatures are actually tied to like Asian
Mm-hmm.
historical lore. Like I didn't pick this up on the first watch, but I picked it up on the second one.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning when whenever somebody goes into Talo, I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what it's called, Talo. I forgot what
Mm-hmm.
exactly it was, but um there whenever the fat like the group of people who live there come out, there's always two lion dogs sitting behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And that very much is like tied to like how in like Asian belief you usually have two foo dogs sitting at the front of your house, and it's kind of like it guards your house.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a sign of like protection almost. And that was like one thing I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, well, there was like the nine-tailed fox, and all of these like different representations of like ancient, East Asian myths,
Mm-hmm.
all in there. So I imagine like it's a very relatable thing of the culture,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Actually, like in hindsight, I do wonder, like, because now that I'm like thinking about it, Mulan actually used like a phoenix in there, right? And obviously, the reception to that was subpar to least, and a
At
lot of
best.
people didn't really like Mulan, but the general consensus is Shang Chi is a really good film. And in like very in like a very distant way, they're kind of related in kind of the things that they impart in their films.
Mm-hmm.
They have a wide array of Asian representation in the films.
Mm-hmm.
They do utilize mythological creatures that are a part of like Asian stories and history.
Well,
um
yeah, I think that's what a lot of reviewers had tied the film with, like the moniker of like this movie is grounded,
mhm,
like saying that this film understands what it wants to talk about and doesn't overstay its welcome. And I think that's what other people have levied the criticisms from Mulan, is that it's besides it being politically not great,
mhm,
um it also had issues where it wanted to be something that the original wasn't
yeah,
necessarily. There was some fantastical elements, like animals and like of course Mushu, but it's like the the modern version of Mulan itself was preoccupied in this idea that it had to be, in my opinion, a version of those modern historical Chinese films right now that
mhm,
are kind of, they are spectacle, probably for a specific reason, um and especially a political reason. It's films, as much as we want films to be apolitical, a lot of modern Chinese cinema is built upon this historical idea of, like, I guess, Asian heroics, and then bled into that is like this idea of like super heroine or hero and or something like that. So
yeah,
I think it was kind of like pushed to too many ideas, instead of what happened in Shang-Chi, that there was a director and a group of writers that had a specific vision for what this character was going to go through, and wasn't preoccupied with setting up stuff in future Marvel films.
right, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're good on Shang-Chi.
yeah,
Is there anything else we want to talk about? Well, post-credit scenes, we're going to be leading into what? Spider-Man No Way Home, given the modern or post Thanos storyline,
mhm,
it's kind of, I think we're back to Marvel somewhat being a little disjointed, not in a negative way, but like focus on bringing us new characters, sort of,
mhm,
into the fold. So that's what I see these coming films. being, just kind of like its own encapsulating story.
Right.
And speaking of, another Marvel film just came out this week too, Venom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know how that one's doing yet.
I heard nothing but good reviews from reviewers, but I know reviewers are different from audience scores, so who knows?
Yeah, so
We'll
we'll
see.
see.
So next topic. So I was gonna talk about something depressing, but like, well, let's lead up to that.
Yeah, we should segue into more film first.
Yeah. So over the past weekend, not this coming weekend, but the past weekend, the 26th. Let's see my calendar. Yeah, the 26th. We went to a film festival in Long Beach.
Yes.
So we went to the Cambodia Town Film Festival, and that was a trip.
It was very long and very uh like spontaneous, but it was very fun.
Well, it was also like your first time at a film festival
It was
too.
yours too.
Well, that's fair, but I felt like, okay, I knew that I would be out for a long time. I think there was an expectation of that.
Mm,
I was also very respectful of your time. I was just kind of like, well, if you need to leave halfway, right? Like after our like the documentary viewing, it's like I don't mind.
hmm.
But you as the Stan co-host, best co-host, you stuck around from the beginning to end. So a little backstory. The reason why I ended up was that I have a new supervisor at my work, so I don't often talk about my work, but she was like, "Hey, Bryan, I'm Khmer, you're Khmer. There's this thing called the Cambodia Town Film Festival. Do you want to go?" I'm just like, I've heard about this event, but I've never been formally asked to go.
Hmm.
So I was just like, all right, sure, why not? And then I purchased tickets. It was supposed to be, I guess, between me and my parents, and like, but turned out they weren't ready. And I guess we'll go into it. It's like, given the past that we collectively have as Southeast Asians, I guess they just don't want to relive it, or at least see a different view of it. Which is, for them, they actually live through it. I don't necessarily blame them, but I also feel like if they're not ready, they're not ready. So
Yeah.
that was just where I was in that conversation. So you came up. I was just like, okay, Kalani, this would be very interesting. I still have these tickets, and then you decided to say yes.
Hmm.
And then we ended up. So that day, Sunday, was the documentary films. There was a screening of a Cambodian film called Fathers.
Yep.
That was very interesting. A
That was
screening, a screening of Raya and the Last Dragon. Oh, that was pretty cool.
that one I liked.
Yeah, and then a meet and greet with a Khmer college professor that did research in collecting modern representation of Cambodian arts and artists, and so that was pretty cool. But I just wanted, we'll go the same way. What is your initial thoughts of this event?
I personally really liked it. While I am not Cambodian, Vietnamese, there were a lot of things that people or like the documentaries explained that even I can relate to as somebody from a different culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like uh, the first documentary we watched was about deportations of a Cambodian man named Sarai. Sarai, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it's pronounced Sore.
Yeah, I'm very
Yeah.
bad at it, but anyway, like as a trickle down effect, they did also mention that there are a lot of Vietnamese people who are also being deported at the same time as
Mm-hmm.
Cambodian people, and I first and foremost didn't know that, but to see somebody going through that and experience like the potentiality of losing their entire family because of a deportation, it just seems very like disconnected to how my family is and how like we've been living in the US. So it's just a very interesting depiction of like a
Mm-hmm.
story. And same thing with a lot of the other documentaries. It was very educational. I learned a lot. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're referencing, yeah, the documentary is called Keep Sorry Home. And it
Mm-hmm.
also according to the description on the Cambodia Town Film Festival website, it says ICE doesn't just separate families at the border. On the outskirts of Boston, three families face the impending threat of deportation, but as refugees from Cambodia and Vietnam, they know they have to fight together to stay together.
Yep.
So it's set in Boston. The For those who don't know or don't follow immigrant rights issue, this law that came up around like 2001, as they describe it in the documentary, basically broadens the scope of deportations to even convictions from past crimes.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have, let's say, for example, um, you've immigrated, you're a refugee, you don't have a lot of resources. You made the mistake of shoplifting, right? You got a misdemeanor back in the 80s. You could have done your time, done your debt to society, and then, sorry, my light keeps on going out, and I don't know why. It's
It's
spooky. It's
okay.
October. It's October, and it's spooky time.
It's scary season.
Scary season. But going back, you can complete your debt to society, and then literally in post 2001, you could be deported for a crime you did 20 years ago.
Yep.
So it just chronicles three different individuals going through that, and all three happen to be Southeast Asian, but kind of focusing on two Cambodian Americans. So yeah, it was like I thought I would have wanted to see that last, because I think it was um the emotional, like the most emotional documentary in that. And I know that there is a bias that I'm Cambodian American, but it's also a very human thing, because it is, tearing families apart, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely was the highlight to me. Like I think that that was the one thing that stuck with me the most after the entire day. Um Aside from, the father's movie.
Oh yeah, that was an interesting film. The I was hoping for the documentary filmmakers, like, that made this film, Keep Sade Home, to have been at the Q&A, but the Q&A was really around these small segments. I think it was like the Cambodia Town Film Fest contributes by submitting films from
Hmm.
like smaller subjects, and it's called the Cham community in Santa Ana. So it's like there's this group of like culturally um tied together through Islam that like lives in Southeast Asia, and their movement, like after Vietnam like created its own country and its own kingdom, they all moved to Cambodia, right? And then from that's the ancient history. The contemporary history is that when the Khmer Rouge happened, right, there was a lot of abuses that happened to this community, and especially through the idea that because they're Islam and because the Khmer Rouge, they brutalize them, just as much, and in some people thoughts probably even worse, given that religious context. They were forced to eat pork when their religion um bans it, right? They were forced to stop praying, stop doing all of these things during the genocide. So yeah, the film is pretty it's 7 minutes, but it does have like also an emotional tinge to it too. And I
Yeah.
didn't even know, when my dad was talking about the Cham community, right, Khmer Muslim, he had the assumption that none of them existed anymore. They just thought, they might have all died out, through the Khmer Rouge. But there is a small community out in Santa Ana, and I talked to some of the creators and some of the community members, and they're like they're really kind. They're opening up with open arms, and it was just like, come taste our food, check out our
Yeah.
community center and all of these things. So yeah.
They were so friendly. It
Hmm.
was just it was very nice. And I didn't know like the Cham community even existed. So that was really interesting to learn about as well.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, another highlight of that evening. So because we had a long lead time before the meet and greet at 8 p.m.,
Mhm.
we decided to get the other feature film
Yes.
of the night. Is a narrative film called Fathers,
Yes.
a a cyclo driver. So basically, for those who don't know, in Cambodia and I think in Southeast Asian countries, there's like these little um like bicycles with people that would sit in front like a basket kind of.
Mhm.
I'm poorly describing it, but that in itself is its own economy. It's kind of like the taxi drivers of like New York. So
Yeah.
if you think Phnom Penh, you think cyclo drivers instead of taxis.
It's a mullet.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
seat in the front and a party in the back. Just kidding.
Oh dear. I was like, wait, did you just say mullet? And then
Yeah.
you said that, and I was just like, oh god. The main character does look like he has a mullet. No, just kidding. It
Does
says
he?
a
Are
cyclo
you
driver. No,
really?
he doesn't. A cyclo driver struggles with fatherhood and life inside a bustling city of Phnom Penh, which is the capital of Cambodia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's in basically it's one of the films that, according to the organizers, were like handpicked or hand selected to represent Cambodia outside the country. And
Mm.
so like it did like festival circuits and all of these things. um it's interesting,
Yes.
to say the least. You get the idea, you're in the box of like American cinema, right? Marvel, Universal, all of those things. When you see an international film, it's very different.
Yes, very much so.
You're very much so. um I wouldn't say it was bad. It had a good story. It had a heart to it, but it was very, for me, my first impressions, it was very soap opera-ish to me.
Yeah, I agree. It's very soap opera-y.
Yeah,
Um,
but
my
somebody in the audience told me it's like, oh yeah, that this is basically like Cambodia dramas. I was just like, okay, okay, this is happening, and I'm just gonna go with it.
yeah, my initial or my initial thoughts after the film was over was like I'm used to like how like in American films or generally in a film it's like there's a progression somewhere, right? Um but like the characters in this film felt like they weren't really going anywhere. Like
Mhm,
you would I guess like in my head, right? There's like a family, right, which is like mainly the father, the daughter, and the younger son.
mhm,
And the daughter tends to be kind of like a character that kind of like um belittles her father.
mhm,
Um and I thought at some point, before the ending, she would there would be like a redeeming way for her to like redeem her character. Kind of like one of those like she sees something happening and then she realizes, oh, like my father is actually doing a lot for me and I
mhm,
should treat him better. But
mhm.
that doesn't happen until it's too late.
It's too
so
late.
so you're just like, oh, this is kind of sad.
I was also thinking about this. I think I had a conversation with a family member about this. That there's this thing where it's like you don't necessarily bring front like issues or topics in family conversation, and so
Yeah.
sometimes the drama in families happens when somebody dies, and then it's like it's one of those things where it's like you don't know what you have until you've lost it. And I think that there's, I guess, in American context, as us being Asian Americans, we're just like, just say something now that they're still alive.
Right? Because you're gonna regret it once, somebody dies. So you're just like, you might as
Yeah,
well
it
just
had that thing at the end where it's just like
it was like everything
learned.
was
It's like, yeah, she learned, but it's like, did the dad have to die?
yeah, no, it literally was everything bad can happens and it gets worse.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's just sad. Like I get the film. It does have like a heart to it and you do understand where the story is going, but at the same time at the end of it you're just like I feel so empty.
Yeah. I think, well, I think the resolution comes with the fact that I think all of the characters have some understanding of what happened. You
Yeah.
know, like a lot of the characters know now that like he works hard to put things together. You know, the father is very dedicated. He's a dedicated person. You know, I think that's I think that's the core of the film. That's a crux of the film, is that it wanted to remind us as audience members that the point of the film is the love of a father that they have towards a child,
Yeah.
essentially.
Hmm.
That was the emotional core. It's just that there was a lot of quirky things that it was outside the bounds of American cinema that I was just like, did they have to like not did they have to use the same like track every single time? And that's like it was, and I think it's like connecting it back to my own culture. Is like music is such a big thing that like if music drives the drama, but when I watch a film, it's like it's not about the music, it's about the acting. So it's just like cut the music, please. And then it does this thing. The most we laughed out loud when this happened, but it's like the action just subsides, and all of a sudden, dun dun dun. I was like, I'm not kidding. When that song came out, we are just laughing because it's like, is that the dad?
Yeah, and then the worst, I think the worst thing for me that happened was we were in there was a scene that was happening, and all of a sudden the subtitles cut out, and I was just like, "What's happening,
Yeah, you know
Bryan?
the yeah,
Help!"
yeah, you know the funny thing, when I noticed that happened, it was like, oh, there's no subtitles. I look over to you, and you're just like, I don't know what happened. I don't know. It's like I was just like, Bryan to the rescue. I know the language, so I get to translate to my friend.
It was, I genuinely got scared because I was like, are they just did they just finish the movie halfway and say like, ah, I don't need all the subtitles? And then I was like, am I gonna not understand the rest of this film? No, but the subtitles came back. But I was a little scared for a quick second.
Yeah, it was like a semi it was like a semi crucial thing about the film that pertained to the backstory of the character, but it was also like the thing about that, it was like it just happened so randomly. You're just like, wait a minute, did I just miss something?
Yeah, I was just wondering. I was like, what the fuck? What happened? Where'd
So
it go?
you see, the I was joking around with like a coworker earlier, and I said it's like it was one of those moments where you're like you travel to Japan and you realize there's no subtitles, and you have a friend next to you, and so like, okay, I got this, bro. I got this for you, man. There you go.
Yeah. Anyways,
It was like probably like a minute and a half out of the whole entire film, but it
yeah.
was very noticeable for you because you were like, hey, I'm Vietnamese, but I could only speak what can't was it Cantonese?
Yep. And
You
I
could only
was,
speak Cantonese, so it's like you're just like, I don't know what to do.
yeah, it was just very like it just happens and you're like, okay.
So besides that, okay, so we thought the film was good. The film was good. It's just that it was a little bit different from the films that we would watch, and like our only pathway of understanding is to call it a soap opera ish kind
You
of.
have to be very open-minded about that
Yeah,
film. I think that's the best way to put it.
yeah. Just come in. Oh, the light went out again. Give me a second. There you go. Maybe there's ghosts. Kalani,
The
save me.
ghosts are hitting the buttons.
Ghosts are hitting the buttons. You know what? This is you're one of the Ghostbusters. Come into this house and exercise all the ghosts out of here.
Oh
Anyways,
no.
so we thought the film was good. The next thing we actually apparently sat. Okay, we kind of like snuck into the Ryan last night, the last 10 minutes, and then we got to do like a we basically walked into the Q&A, and
Mm-hmm.
so the Q&A had Francois Chow, which is actually kind of like a legendary like TV actor. You know, he's been in Lost, he's in The Expanse, all of these different films. And then the kid that voiced the boat, the person that owns the boat.
The little
I
kid,
The
yeah.
little kid, and he was there too, and he's just like damn, I wish I had his confidence as a kid. I'm just
He's
like,
really funny. Yeah.
yeah, honestly, it's like one of those things. It's like I want to be your friend, but you're too young. I was like, I want to be the teacher for your class. Anyways, but that film was okay. I have a complicated thing about that film, but other than that, I think it's okay. I think Raya and the Last Dragon is a good film. I just feel conflating a whole region to this idea that there's a mythical place that we're going to conflate all like Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, the Philippines, Indonesia into like one movie. And I was just kind of like, I don't know how to think about this,
Mm.
but I think the thing with Shang-Chi is like you could tie it to a place, right? But this is a total like mythical plane that you are saying that Ryer's hat is it's like a Filipino specific hat, and there's aspects of like Thai culture and different things. That's my complication with it, but I do enjoy, and what I do like is that the film was primarily created through Asian American writers and actors.
Yeah.
So that was the thing. I enjoyed the Q&A. I got a picture with Francois Chow.
Insert picture here.
Insert picture here, and it was really cool. It was the guy. So I was watching Lost, and I was just like, this actor's really good, and I was like, I want to. It was one of those early days when I started to have like the internet at my home, because I don't think I had the internet when I was in middle school. I think that's
Yeah.
when I started to get internet. But the I searched up his name, and I think this might have been pre Wikipedia. And I found out he was Khmer American. I was like, holy shit. It's like everything about Lost or like him in that show, I was just like, that pales in comparison. It's like, I need to know who this guy is. How did he become an actor and all of these things? So
Right.
it was awesome. It was awesome to see him. He's also the voice of Shredder in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Mm.
And yeah. With thoughts on Raya and the Last Dragon, real quick.
To make it really fast, I did think it was a really good film. I've seen the full thing at home.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like it wasn't until we had our conversation that I realized like it really is kind of like an amalgamation of a lot of different things from here and there. Kind of like they like nitpicked things. They're like, oh, this is nice. Oh, this is also nice, and they just picked it from like different
Mm-hmm.
cultures and just they mixed it into a bowl and put it into a movie.
Yeah,
But
you stir it in the pot.
stir it in a pot. No, but it was really I personally did like the film.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that they have so many different voices, including Aquafina yet again because
Yes,
she's in
yet
all the
again.
films. But it's just it to me it really did feel like a good film. It has a good like story behind it, but the representation maybe was just kind of like it could have been a little better. But I think as time goes on, as we've seen, I think the representation we see in films of Asians and different Asian cultures will hopefully get better.
Yeah, I hope so too. We're living in a situation. It's we the break between Joy Luck Club and Crazy Rich Asians was about what, almost a decade, maybe even beyond a decade, almost like 15 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
But after Crazy Rich Asians, regardless of what you thought about it, just it being another comedic romance film or whatever, it made a lot of money. It just showcased that if you actually put in the effort to hire Asian actors, to hire Asian American writers, hire directors, right? If there was a concerned effort to do that, that it will make money, right? You know,
Yeah.
so um hopefully, right, post Crazy Rich Asian, we got Shang-Chi, we got The Farewell, we got Parasite, although that was an international film, won Best Picture in the Oscars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for Minari winning Best Supporting Actress, I believe. Let me double check that.
Mm.
With the grandmother winning a Best Supporting Actress,
Yeah.
you really hope that um that there would be better representation further down the line.
Yeah. I remember when Crazy Rich Asians first came out, there were a lot of critics saying that, this representation just wasn't it.
Mhm.
It's just very like it's only one-sided, but I think the issue that for some reason I didn't really hear a lot of also is that that is kind of like the first big film that had to do with Asians in the first place, right? So
Mhm.
it wasn't like we had a lot of options for representation in the first place. So as time goes on, I think as people dabble into making different types of films, it'll make the representation of Asians in different forms of media or different films or different storylines a lot more prevalent. There'll be a lot more stories for people to tell.
Exactly.
Hmm.
That being said, the last segment of the of Cambodia Town Film Festival that we were that we did was the um ooh, I got distracted by something. Sorry. Was the voices of a new generation Cambodian Americans in the creative arts. So the author Christine Sue is a professor, I believe, in the Bay Area currently,
Yes.
and she was launching her kind of like research book, which basically chronicles, modern. I would probably call it Gen Z, like cuss Gen Z, kind of like at the beginning,
Millennial.
but mostly millennial voices, or like at least individuals that can identify with like that millennial idea, like cooks, chefs, martial arts. I learned Cambodia has its own distinctive martial arts,
Hmm.
distinctive from Thai kickboxing, distinctive from Vietnamese martial arts, and all of these traditions. It has its own specific tradition itself. And then the culinary world, the dance, fashion, even television. She covers it all in this book, and I hope she would probably make a part two. Hopefully, she mentions that during her presentation to have a part two of this book, because because there's more, there's more chefs, there's more dancers, there's more visibility amongst all of these different disciplines.
Right.
So I think that would be pretty awesome to see that. I think my just impressions is actually literally just talking to the author of the book. Like, I think this was also our first book launch.
Mm.
And for this one is it was just nice to see somebody of a Cambodian American, or like um that was like a professor, that was somebody that was I wouldn't say the stereotype, but more of a person that was kind of aligned with my own personal sensibilities also. And it was good to kind of like talk to. And I think that time, by that time of day, you were just kind of a little bit drained.
Me, yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get a chance to talk to her, but listening to like the people talk in the session and seeing them describe their stories that were written in the books, I think it to me seemed, I don't know, it seemed very nice. Like even though I
Hmm.
didn't get a chance to communicate with anybody who was a part of the book at that time, but
Hmm.
um it was just like it felt really grounded. I don't know if that's the best way to put it.
Hmm.
Like I think when it comes to like reading books, because I've done a lot of book reading before, because you're so disjointed and you don't really get to see the people behind the book, you feel a sense of disconnection from it.
Hmm.
But to be there and see the author and to see the people that are featured in the books, it kind of makes these stories seem much more tangible. Like in my head, I can rationalize it and be like, this actually happened to real people, and it's not
Hmm.
just them, like being kind of like further away. Like I've never really seen these people. I don't really know their stories. I don't really know who they are, but like I
Right.
actually saw them. So
Hmm. And it was also like that they did like a meet and greet at the very end to just spend time to like talk like 2 to 3 minutes at a time for each person almost. And even if the subject didn't tie back to me, you know what I mean, like as somebody in media, right, like talking to a chef, talking to my traditional dancer, talking to somebody that works in like as a working actor, right, on the stage.
mm-hmm.
Like their experience are quite different from mine, you know, especially as somebody that's what, like a pseudo educator but also does media on his free time and like does photography. Like I have a different probably context for what I do
Right.
than all of these other creators that, you know, I in my brain in my mind palace is like I can't imagine doing what they can.
Right. Right.
Yeah, especially the Khmer martial arts. I'm just like, uh, dude's
Yeah,
gonna
I
kick
could
my ass.
absolutely never.
So yeah, that kind of wraps up like that Sunday. You know, we got a creme brulee donut. You got a cookie. You got
It
some
was
cake.
sick.
That was awesome. I brought back a bunch of like donuts, and we ate as much as we could.
Yep.
I couldn't get to the red velvet cake because it looked not great after a couple days.
Oh no.
But I at least got the creme brulee donut, and then my parents really liked that kind of like the sweet wraps
That's good. That's
that
good.
that I brought back. And so enough of Cambodia Town Film Festival. We got about maybe so before it's an hour. We did want to discuss a little bit about what happened. I think kind of during our um recording last time, the case of Gabby Patito.
Yeah.
So that was a yikes on its own thing. And I think even that time when we were recording, we were following it, but we weren't sure how to talk about it and not make it sensationalized.
Yeah.
Um so as far as we understand it, Bryan Laundrie is still missing, right?
Yep.
There's this whole thing where Dog the Bounty Hunter tried to get to Laundrie's house, right?
Yeah.
That was a thing. But even before that, we found out that Gabby Petito herself was found, her body was found on what, September somewhere, right?
It was a while back
It
now.
was a while
Yeah.
back. Sorry. Start date.
Let's see.
I think the search started in September, like around the first week of September.
Yeah, her body was found almost like a week later, I believe. But
Yeah.
it was like the 21st.
Yeah. And there's something about this case that I find both fascinating and also disturbing. Is just the mass of internet sleuths that, you know, had a hand in like both contributing and like also like doing really shitty stuff. You know, there's people
Mm,
pretending to be Gabby to being like psychic saying that, oh, Laundry couldn't have done anything like this. You know, that was all. Well, to be fair, like I think most investigators wouldn't, you know, bat an eyelash to that, you know what I mean? But like on a level that like this person's a creator, this person is also like doing this also, like, and then presenting it in a public forum, it's like, what are you doing?
yeah, I kind of picked this as like this is probably like one of the biggest cases we've had in a while, kind of like
Mhm.
a because it's like a nationwide manhunt for this guy, I would assume.
And still happening right now, as far as October 1st in
Right.
like mid evening.
Right. And I don't think we've had a case that has been this widespread in
Mm-hmm.
knowledge and stuff, but it is um this case is sprouting up in a different kind of environment, you know, compared to a lot of like older cases that have
Mm-hmm.
happened before. Um I think in this day and age, you know, there are a lot of people who are kind of like clout chasers who want to
Mm-hmm.
be able to get recognition for, you know, doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, it's hard to say it, but I feel like it at to some degree comes at the expense of the people actually involved in the cases, such as like family members and
Mm-hmm.
victims and whatnot. So in regards to at least like the people who were, you know, doing the thing like, oh, I'm a psychic, I can, you know, I can sense da 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 da. It just feels kind of like you're kind of like,
Exploitative,
yeah, you're kind
you
of like
know.
putting the nail in the coffin for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just felt kind of sad. So yeah.
Yeah. And props to those that came through. The only reason why Gabby was found in the first place is that a different family was vlogging in the Grand Teton area, um and at that time was like, oh, like it's like the coincidence of it is like, this family's from Florida, they're vacationing Grand Teton, they happen upon a van that had Florida license plates and all of these things, and then on top of that had the wherewithal to have a dash cam and then turned it into the authorities. And so props to them, props to the individuals that we found out later that their stories were credible, and all of these things. I just think we want to reiterate, it's like, if you are thinking or wanting to use this story to clout chase, or insert your own agenda, insert your other things, and in some degree, by us talking about it is also kind of pertaining to that noise. But I'm just saying, like, in the frame of it being exploitative, that you're trying to set an agenda, that you're trying to do all these other things, I think you should really reevaluate what you're trying to do, and
Yeah.
especially as a psychic.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, I think with any case, it does happen. Like
Yeah.
I've watched a whole bunch. I watch a lot of true crime cases and stuff. And if it wasn't like how it is now, with the
Mm-hmm.
Gabby Petito case, it would be like psychics calling you up and being like, "Hey, I can help you try to find your so and so. I'm a psychic." So that it's not uncommon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely not uncommon, and I think this is also like preaching to the wind almost, both on the amount of people that watch this podcast, but also at the same point, the amount of noise that any individual case can have. I think another aspect of this case, that people have recently have talked about, is like this idea of that the missing white person case, and in particular the missing white girl case, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a show called Big Sky got into hot water, because I think the show was inspired by cases of missing people in like rural Montana, right? But a lot of the cases was about native females, right?
Yeah.
And the show wanted to paint this idea, oh, it's just missing white people, right? But
Yeah.
like, in cases of those things, those incidents that happen, usually those cases get resolved. But if you're a person of color, and especially a person of an indigenous and native background, many of those cases ends up being unsolved, right?
Right.
Or
Mm-hmm.
pushed to the curb, or in many cases, right, trying to get literally federal government to, hey, let's say, hey, listen to what's happening here, there's a pattern and this needs to stop.
Yeah. I think like highlights at least to all of this happening is that there is kind of like a light being shown on these cases that have been happening to all of these people.
Mm-hmm.
Like this morning I woke up and there was a video on my recommended talking about another man who went missing 3 months ago
Mm-hmm.
in the same area, and he was like a geologist. So as much as it is really upsetting to see the outcome of this case with Gabby
Mm-hmm.
Petito and everything like that, I think hopefully, like what her father was saying on that one interview that he had with the public, it brings more light to these other cases that are in need of solving, and it provides those cases with more information for their families to finally get closure.
And props for the father for saying that, to
Yeah.
some degree. I think it takes a lot of strength for him to say that thank you for everybody that's done their work to locate my daughter, all of these things. And the thing I think he basically said, I'm gonna like misquote it, but it is the idea is like, that same energy you had for looking for my daughter, please help someone else, help someone that that's not Gabby Petito, help somebody that is going through this heartache, and it's just this notion of like, yes, there's been a spike in murders lately, but like, by the numbers, kidnappings and all of these things are down, but like the fact that we don't investigate it when it's people of color, that's something that we should look into, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it takes a lot of strength for somebody that's grieving to say, encourage, hey, we thank you, but please pay it forward, help other families that are going through the similar thing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. No, that was a lot. I the main angle that I did want to talk about this subject or this idea was really this notion that, you know, both having armchair sleuths or people to investigate this is both a resource but also a hindrance, or and then also like people seeking attention in the time of other people's grief. And it's just really terrible that, you know, it had to come to something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we close out? We're gonna try to finish off with something that's a little bit less negative, maybe somewhat a little bit humorous, just some of the subjects that I was gonna cover with my previous guest. But is there anything else on the subject of Gabby Petito that struck you, or you know?
I think the only thing I really like I still have on my mind is like I hope they find him soon, and
Exactly.
like he provides information or at least helps, because I think the longer he's still out on the run, um I guess the further they'll be from being able to get answers, because he's the only one who really knows what happened. So
Exactly. Yeah, and hopefully alive. You know, and this whole dog the bounty hunter thing is like, yes, it's very exploitative in a sense,
that was a little
especially
crazy.
him being a well-renowned, I guess, in his circles, a TV bounty hunter. But you know, basically the Kat Von D of bounty hunting.
Yep.
But hopefully he doesn't think that's an insult. He just that's just basically I'm just basically said he just popularized bounty hunting.
Yeah.
But you know, like the for him to do that, hopefully he understands part of it is also like, hey, by the way, I myself am a reality TV person. Therefore, a lot of people will be asking, it's like, is he just doing this as some kind of like weird promotional thing? You know?
Yeah.
And like as an audience member, you're just like thinking, is he just trying to do this for all the wrong reasons? You know? And I think that's the same thing I think as an audience member and a person that's trying to contribute to this story need to recognize is like, am I being a hindrance, or am I being, you know, a resource in this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so last thing we wanted to talk about, you know, the one of the main reasons why we're not together is COVID-19.
Yes.
Things have oddly been okay lately. I
Here at
think
least.
well, at least in California. I'm only gonna say it in California. The California's cases have subsided, right? We've have since the last time we talked about the insanity of the recall. You know, it happened, it passed. You know, the governor is still Mr. Gavin Newsom.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, and you know, yes,
Oh.
and right now, currently, um, setting, I guess, a bar for California itself. Earlier, Newsom ordered COVID vaccines are eligible for students, and the first state to consider first state to mandate vaccines for K through 12 schools. So, so that's kinder. So that's probably the ages of like what, 8 or so, somewhere around those lines.
Yeah.
But like for folks right now, 12 and older are basically the people that will get the vaccine, and the vaccine is very much widespread. Please take it.
Yep.
It works. um you know, there are some people that can still get um I wouldn't say intubated, but like, you know, have to stay in a hospital for a day or so. But those cases are more the anomaly than it is the trend, right?
Right.
And yeah, we just encourage folks to do that. And in the conversation of we're in a new chapter of vaccine mandates, where since the FDA has approved Pfizer, right,
Mm-hmm.
as as an approved as a FDA approved drug to help combat coronavirus, right? They there's mandates up the wazoo. There's companies that are firing folks or laying folks off because of it. I think New York had to call in the National Guard at one point to deal with either mass resignations or people that who refused the vaccine
Yep.
to basically hit the road.
Yeah, no, I literally was having an argument with someone this
Mm.
morning.
But that's the thing. Well, especially okay. Well, the thing for schools itself is that the schools, I think, what through Title 10 or Title 9, they have the ability and the authority to enact mandates. You know,
Mhm.
either for both students and for faculty, right? Like when I work in the school, I literally had to get like a long list of vaccinations of a bunch of things. So
Yeah.
it's like that's the thing I have to do for my paycheck. You know, it pays well. You know, at least I believe it pays well to a degree, and that's the price, right? Like, I think for some people, they have to make the calculations for themselves. So it's like, it's not full like forcing them to get the vaccine, but it's also the the notion is like if you are a private or public business, you have the reasonable power to enact your own rules.
Yeah. I just find it like so I don't know how to explain this in the best way possible, but recently I've seen a lot of like parents coming up to these school board meetings and doing, obviously going onto those panels and talking and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I can't fully blame them, right? Like they're thinking that masks are dangerous to their children, which
Mm-hmm.
obviously there are a lot of like peer reviewed articles telling you otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But they're doing something that they think is in the best interest of their kid, and I like, as much as I can't blame them like that, right? I just find it frustrating because there is a increase in children catching COVID now, and they're probably at the most high risk of getting it because obviously, like, anybody over 14, right, I think was the age, 14
Mm-hmm.
and older, has, for luck, hopefully has the vaccine, which at least prevents them from catching a serious case of COVID. But these children don't have that, and they're basically how we all were at the beginning of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And for them to think that putting all of these children in the exact same situations as like the elderly in the beginning in nursing homes, and thinking like, oh, they'll be fine because God. It doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense. All of these kids are getting sick. There have been some kids that have died now,
Mm-hmm.
and it just I don't, like, as like I said, I can't blame them, but like at the same time, like, I don't understand how you can look at all of the facts being presented to you
Mm-hmm.
about all of these children catching COVID and the rising rates of people in hospitals now, and say that you shouldn't be allowed to wear a mask, or kids don't need to be wearing masks in on school campuses when they 100% should be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know.
It is, it just kind of boggles the mind, you know,
Yeah.
at least for somebody that I think for me personally is like I'm going to do as much as I can as an individual to make sure that this doesn't spread. And if that's getting the vaccine or doing staying updated on news to make sure my parents still, for them when they're ready, right, we got the Moderna shot, when that's ready for a booster, letting them get it, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So we've talked before about, at one point we've had our doubts and things like that, and like we've talked through them. We got to a point where it was like, okay, let's get it right.
Yeah.
But I think for right now, I feel like it's been tested. It's been like what, since my last shot in March, I haven't grown a second leg. I mean, not a second leg. Sorry, I haven't grown a third leg.
I
Right?
haven't been stuck to a wall.
I haven't been stuck to the wall. I don't have feedback when I'm talking to a microphone.
Yeah.
So it's like, like people should just be like, hey, people just got the shot.
Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully it gets better.
Yeah.
On another happy note, though, I'm about to bedazzle the hell out of my COVID vaccine card.
Oh, you
No,
because
I bought a like a protective sleeve to put on top of my COVID card because funny enough, this ties back to everything that's been happening this
mm-hmm,
weekend. But after the Cambodian film festival, I was like, that's the first time I actually had to whip out my card and
mm-hmm,
show it to somebody. And then on in the back of my head, I was like, huh, I'm probably gonna have to do this a lot more frequently. Maybe I should get something protected in case I like run into the rain or like need to pick it out. And then coincidentally, that the morning afterwards, I had work and I was cleaning out the receipts in my bag, and the COVID card fell out of my wallet and
mm-hmm,
into the pile of receipts. Obviously, I wasn't going to toss it because I would look through the receipts first and make sure that everything I was tossing was correct. But
mm-hmm.
it got mixed in there. And if I didn't know about it, like,
Or if you were like absent-minded at that
yeah, I
moment.
could have tossed it. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I'm gonna get a protective COVID card sleeve, and I bought one, and it's coming, and I will probably show you the next time we do a podcast.
Do you go to no, casinos? God damn it. do you go to do you go to concerts a lot or
No,
anime expo?
no, no, no. As much as I would want to, I think there's a part of me that still feels very like apprehensive about going into like really really packed
Oh no, but
places.
I meant in the past, right?
Oh, every once in a while, yeah.
Do
Uh
do you get like a name tag or a name badge?
no, no.
Oh, done. Because I go to like events, like business events and things like that. They have like these like little gimmicky like
Oh yeah,
plastic
and you could
things
just
with like the thing. Um, I turned out I had a few of those.
did you
I have
use
a
it for your COVID card?
yeah, it fit perfectly. I was just like, oh damn. It was like
Perfect.
one of those it was like one of those big dinner fundraiser events. I was like invited to go because we did all the work and yeah, all of those things. And I was just like, oh, I have all of these things in my memory box. I wonder
You
if
could
these
totally
actually
use
fit. Yeah, I was like, some of them are too small, some of them were too big, and then it was like this Goldilocks thing. I was like, this is just right.
it.
So it was perfect. It was a perfect thing. Uh, um, slot to put it in there. The funny thing is that you see it in Amazon. It's basically those. There's like this stationery company called Avery or something. It's basically they're rebranding those like name tag things into COVID specific vaccine card holders,
Oh.
and it's just like there's just that's just the economy of it now. It's just basically okay now you like since I think I remember some people saying like you shouldn't laminate them or something like that. I was about to laminate them until somebody told me to no, don't do that. I was just like, okay, I guess I shouldn't laminate them.
Protective
Instead,
sleeve.
just leave. It goes.
No,
So,
I can't say that. Don't worry about it.
were you gonna say no glove, no love?
No, 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 no. I was gonna say
Oh, okay.
it's like a condom for your car.
Oh, that's basically what I said too. No
Okay,
glove,
I'm
no
glad
love.
I'm not alone in thinking that. Okay.
Okay. Remember, kids, no glove,
Use
no love.
protection. We need to move on. This is where we ended. This is a good place to stop.
So anyways, the last bit I want to talk about, I think there's been a grim milestone recently. 700,000 American citizens have died through COVID. um I guess given the 18 months that we've have 18, well, I think now 19 months and some change, um dealing with this, getting trying to wrap your head around 700,000 fathers, mothers, grandparents, kids to some degree, adults, right? That had a lot of their life ahead of them dying. And the US Capitol had a temporary installation of flags to represent each individual death of the pandemic, and to see in stark contrast, right, the amount of people that passed away through this pandemic. I just have a trouble understand why people would be hesitant and B, make a whole big deal about a mask.
I just think it's, it's very politicized now.
Yeah.
I don't think it should have been, but
Oh, same. Yeah, I don't think it should have been politicized, but I think now we live in a reality that it is now.
yeah. And I think that makes it worse. But I think that's also fed by just misinformation
Mm-hmm.
and, people trying to do their due diligence and looking up information with their trusted sources, but their trusted sources sometimes being very fallible sources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you get your sources from Facebook, you might want to reconsider that. Just saying.
Or doing some Google research with
Or Reddit or think, oh yeah, like just doing basic Google research can be a
hop onto
problem
Google
too.
Scholar. But yeah.
Yeah. And so, that's what it is right now in terms of how I'm feeling about it. A funny tidbit that I want to leave people with is that across the nation, it's a tragedy that schools are closing because of spikes in COVID. The funny thing is I'm getting text messages from kids saying like, oh, we're hearing all of these schools are closing down, but there's like 0 cases where at our school, Mr. Kim. I was just like, yeah, that's probably a good reason. There's a good reason for that. People are vaccinated. A lot of the students have indicated to me they're excited to get the vaccine,
Which is good.
which is good. And, like a lot of
Thank
the kids are
God.
like, a lot of kids were like, I'm fine with the mask. Makes me look like a ninja, that
That's
sort
what
of
I
thing.
would have thought. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, if I was a kid back then, I'm just all like,
Give
I'm
me the
not.
mask.
I'll just be like, I'm not worth looking at. I'm gonna put a mask on.
Oh
I'm
no,
just kidding.
stop.
Not like that. Not like that. No, I would have thought it was like a ninja thing too.
Yeah, just give me the mask.
Yeah. So, um, besides that, today marks too spooky October. So hopefully, hey
We'll wear a
Kalani,
costume next time.
Kalani, let's do a podcast next week, and then if you feel better and we're in person, we'll decorate, we'll dress up, and
We'll
we'll
do
we'll
something.
we'll do something. We'll
Yep.
have let's have we'll challenge ourselves. I have so much to do. We'll challenge ourselves to have a podcast every week where we dress up as a different character.
Oh my God, that's a lot of money. Okay, I'll try to figure out something.
Well, it doesn't have to be a whole production. It'll just, if you just literally just get like a little bow with a like devil horns, I'll be fine with that.
Okay,
Or
we'll figure this
little bat
out.
wings.
We're gonna figure this out.
There's one thing that I really want to try to do, and I keep on forgetting to order it. Is just pretend to be an H3H3 podcast, aka frenemies.
Oh boy.
That would be really funny. And it would
We'll
be great. It would be great for my niece because she loved it when it was still going.
oh
Yeah.
we'll figure this out when the time comes.
All right. So thank you again for watching. Hopefully we ended in somewhat of a positive note. We've talked about a lot of things. Shang-Chi. We talked about our time at a first film festival. We talked about how exploitative some of the true crime people are. And then we talked about, I think we talked about vaccines and kind of like our current mood about what's been happening with the pandemic. Like literally, I think it's been now 19 months or maybe even more
Yeah.
about living in it. We're like living in it right now. So um other than that, everybody stay safe. If you are able to get the your booster and lucky enough to get the bougie Pfizer the bougie Pfizer vaccine, awesome, good for you. I'll still be waiting. I'll still be waiting. So until then, we'll see you in next time. So bye.